He was texting you every day. Then his replies got slower, his energy changed, and suddenly you couldn't stop thinking about him. And here's the part I really need you to hear. Wanting him more after he pulls away does not necessarily mean your feelings got deeper. Sometimes it just means he became less available. And those two things can feel almost identical. Because the moment you stop knowing where you stand, your brain starts paying attention in a completely different way. You know the situation. You've been talking for a few weeks. The texts are good. There's chemistry. Maybe you've had one great date, maybe two. He texts first. He asks questions. He seems excited to see you again. And for once, you're not analyzing every little thing because it actually feels easy. Then something shifts. His replies get shorter. The goodnight text doesn't come. Maybe he takes a day to answer when he used to answer in an hour. And at first, you're reasonable about it. He's probably busy, whatever. Then another day goes by, and suddenly you're checking your phone more than you want to admit. You're rereading your last conversation. Was I too eager? Did I say something weird? Was that joke too much? Should I text him? Should I wait? And this is where it gets interesting. 3 days ago, you liked him. Now you're consumed by him. But you didn't suddenly learn something incredible about this man. He didn't become kinder. He didn't become more compatible with you. He didn't prove he'd make an amazing partner. The biggest thing that changed was your access to him. He became less available, and your mind started making him more important, because uncertainty is unbelievably good at stealing your attention. When something feels predictable, your mind can relax around it. But when something changes and you don't understand why, your brain keeps coming back to it. It wants an answer. What happened? What changed? Is this temporary? Is he losing interest? And suddenly, one unanswered message takes up more space in your head than the 10 sweet messages he sent last week. Think about how strange that is. Those 10 messages felt good, but you probably didn't spend the entire day analyzing them. One silence, that can take over your whole evening. And this is where I want you to be careful. Because your mind spending more time on someone does not automatically mean that person has become more meaningful. Sometimes, your brain is simply trying to finish a story that suddenly stopped making sense. You're not necessarily thinking about him because the connection is extraordinary. You might be thinking about him because you don't know what happened to it. And if you lean anxious in your attachment style, what people often call anxious attachment, this can hit even harder. Because distance doesn't always register as, he's busy. It can register as, something is wrong. And once that alarm goes off, the instinct usually isn't to move away. It's to move closer. Maybe I should text him. Maybe I should be a little sweeter. Maybe I should show him I'm still interested. Maybe I gave him the wrong impression. Maybe I need to fix this. And before you know it, you're putting even more energy into a connection at the exact moment he's putting in less. That's where I want to lovingly call you out a little. Because sometimes what feels like fighting for the connection is actually you doing the emotional work for two people. And if you constantly have to revive something every time the other person stops participating, you need to at least ask yourself what exactly you're trying to save. And there's another piece of this that I think gets missed all the time. You might not actually be chasing him. You might be chasing the version of him you met 2 weeks ago. The guy who texted first. The guy who made plans. The guy who seemed curious about you. The guy who made you feel chosen. So when his behavior changes, part of you starts thinking, how do I get that version of him back? And now you're not really responding to the relationship that exists today. You're responding to the memory of what it felt like before it changed. That's a huge difference. Because sometimes you don't miss the person nearly as much as you miss the way you felt around them, when everything still felt secure. You don't just miss him. You miss the feeling you had before he pulled away. And sometimes we confuse wanting that feeling back with wanting the actual person in front of us. Now imagine your phone lights up 2 days later. Hey stranger, sorry, crazy week. And there it is, that rush, warmth, relief, maybe even that little stupid smile you hate yourself for having. And suddenly you think, see, I knew I really liked him, but hold on. A big part of what you're feeling in that exact moment may simply be the relief of uncertainty ending. You were anxious. Now you have an answer. Of course that feels good. But feeling better because someone came back does not automatically mean they're good for you. And I want you to really remember these 3 things. Thinking about him more doesn't mean you know him better. Wanting reassurance doesn't necessarily mean you want the relationship. And feeling relieved when he comes back does not prove compatibility. It proves you were relieved. That's it. And yes, I know that's almost irritatingly simple. But sometimes the truth is irritatingly simple. This is usually where we make the dangerous leap. If I feel this strongly about him, there must be something special here. Maybe there is. I'm not telling you that every intense connection is fake, but strong feelings are not evidence. Intensity does not tell you whether someone communicates well. It doesn't tell you if they'll be there when things get uncomfortable. It doesn't tell you whether they're emotionally available. It doesn't tell you whether you can build a peaceful relationship with them. It tells you that something inside you is feeling a lot, and that matters. But it's information about what is happening inside you. It is not automatically information about the quality of the person in front of you. So instead of asking, "Why do I suddenly want him so much?" ask, "What actually changed? Did he become more right for me? Or did he simply become harder to reach?" And this is usually the point where somebody tells you to pull back and match his energy. I don't love that advice, because it can turn into another game. He takes 4 hours, so you take 5. He doesn't watch your story, so now you're pretending you didn't see his. That's not security. That's anxiety wearing sunglasses. A secure response doesn't mean you suddenly stop caring. It means you don't immediately turn anxiety into action. Because I know what you want to do when you feel somebody slipping away. You want to close the gap. You want to send the text. You want to ask if everything is okay. You want to somehow get things back to how they felt on Tuesday. And sometimes reaching out is completely fine. But before you do, ask yourself something. Am I reaching out because I genuinely want to connect with him, or because I need him to make this feeling go away? Those are very different things. And then look at what is actually happening. Not how amazing date 1 felt. Not the version of him from 2 weeks ago. Not who you think he could be once he feels safe. Now. How is he showing up now? Because you cannot build a relationship with someone's potential. You can only build one with their patterns. And sometimes the hardest thing is simply not rushing in to close the distance for them. Let a little space exist. Not because you're trying to make him miss you. Not because this is some strategy to make him chase you. But because space gives people room to show you who they are when you're not doing all the work. Does he come back with clarity? Does he reconnect? Does his effort return? Or does he come back just enough to make sure you don't leave, and then disappear again? Pay attention to that difference. And obviously, context matters. If you've had one date and someone takes longer to answer, that's information to observe. It doesn't need to become a crisis you solve at 2 in the morning. But if you've been building something real for 6 months and someone suddenly starts disappearing, that's different. You are allowed to say, "Hey, I've noticed something has changed. Are we still building the same thing here?" Calmly, directly, without writing a 12-paragraph message first. Security is not pretending you don't have needs. Security is being willing to express them and being willing to hear the answer, especially when the answer comes through someone's behavior. And please don't spend the next 3 hours trying to figure out whether he's avoidant. Maybe he is. Maybe he's scared. Maybe he's stressed. Maybe he's genuinely busy. Maybe he likes you but doesn't know what he wants. Maybe he's just not that interested. You do not need to diagnose his distance before you're allowed to decide whether this dynamic works for you. Understanding someone's behavior can create compassion. It does not create compatibility. You can understand him completely and still say, "I don't want to feel like this all the time." That's allowed. So the next time someone's distance suddenly makes you want them more, don't immediately assume that intensity means the connection got deeper. Ask yourself what the distance activated in you. Because intensity tells you how activated you are. Consistency tells you what kind of relationship is actually being offered. And you do not need to become colder. You do not need to stop caring. You do not need to become the woman who never gets anxious. You just need to stop treating every strong feeling as evidence that someone belongs in your life. You can feel everything and still choose what is good for you. Have you ever noticed that someone became much harder to stop thinking about only after they became inconsistent? Tell me about it below. Thank you for watching and listening, and I'll see you in the next video.